when you got a computer, did it have an immediate effect on your practice? Did it start to integrate with what you were doing?
I don't remember. I mean, I guess it was gradual. I still, like I say, work in notebooks, but I'm sure that I started going from the notebook to the computer sooner than I would have on a typewriter, I'm sure, but I don't have a clear memory of it. What I do have a clear memory of is how the internet changed things, because then you could send someone something and say, what do you think? I don't know about this last line, what do you think? You know, I mean, you could have that kind of conversation. Yeah. And if you do that in a letter, which I did, but, you know, by the time you got a letter back, you'd already made up your mind.
Right,
so.
Right.
I would say it's influenced the content of my poems more than the composition process.
Okay.
It's influenced the context. Computers and internet have influenced the content of my poems a lot.
Yeah.
Doing a lot with websites, with that kind of radical interconnectivity of associative thinking that the internet suggests.
Yeah.
And I think the dawn of the internet probably has changed the way I compose my poetics in a certain way, and that it's given permission for a more associative metonymic thinking process that I associate with internet links. And that, I think, was one of the first poems where I consciously wrote a poem whose thinking was related to the way I think the internet thinks, if we can call the internet a thinker. In some ways it is.
Yeah.
What I like is I can take a chunk of text and move it up here, and it doesn't take me 40 minutes to retype the whole damn thing. And if I don't like it, I can try it down here.
Right.
And if I want to print out a copy of something as a prose poem and a copy of it with some line breaks and look at them next to each other, I can do that in a flash.
Right.
All that, I couldn't be happier.
So at the time,
because then I'm spending my time reading and writing and revising, and not spending my time, oh, now I have to do the whole thing over again.
Yeah.
What's personal about this medium in that way that I've described already, I like the contact this machine gives me with people. I feel it's certainly more immediate. I think it's increased the contact that I have with people who are spread around the world.
Yeah.
It's been more important to me since I don't go into school and run into people that I have conversations with.
Right.
And I like the fact that it's this keyboard that connects me with them, and this keyboard that connects me with strangers who might read my poems.
Yeah.
And I like that about this a lot.
Right.
I like it a lot. I like it all the more now that when the phone rings, 90% of the time, even though I've asked not to be called by telemarketers, it's telemarketers.
Yeah, because most of your conversations that are important now are on the computer.
Yeah.
And then I guess, has that changed the poems? I mean, has that...
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think it changed what I produced, but I think that it was the beginning of a different kind of archival anxiety. There's the archival anxiety about paper works being preserved.
Yeah.
Gibbon's manuscript or somebody else's manuscript being destroyed. I'm of a generation where I save magazines that I have working.
Yeah.
That's the old anxiety. And the new anxiety is the mortality of digital information.
Yeah.
I can remember the Librarian of Congress saying to me that the only way to preserve digital material is to reproduce it. Unlike papyrus, it's mortal. It turns to mush.
Yeah.
that's aside from the fact that the medium keeps changing.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course it's changed. Everything is accelerated, and you can look up stuff and look up definitions of words. I would often write with a dictionary. I never have called a poem finished before I looked up most of the words in the poem.
Yeah.
I like to see how the etymologies work in relationship to one another before I call something finished.
Okay.
So now you can do a lot of that on the computer.
Well, one of the things that I like about doing it on the computer is I can close my eyes, which is really odd, but I like it. And so it seems to lend itself to, it's going to sound weird, not to dialogue or action, but to real kind of interior moments where I'm in a character's mind and I want to replicate her thinking process. Like I said, the first time I ever tried it was where I kind of tried to render a dream that the character had had, so I closed my eyes. And, of course we can type with our eyes closed.
Right.
But I can't write with my eyes closed.
Okay.
In a way, I suppose the best thing I could have, the thing I thought was best about that part of the process when the computer came along was that it saved time. I could immediately just look at it on the screen, go back to longhand, and then add what I'd written longhand onto whatever I'd already saved on the computer.
Okay.
But it kept me from writing everything back down, and for a long time I wondered about, well, what am I missing there? What might I not have seen that I would have seen if I'd been writing it longhand? And I used to say things like, the reason I keep writing longhand, or printing actually, I print this stuff, is that it allows me to feel the shapes of the letters themselves. It allows you to dispense words incrementally in syllables, not that the typewriter or the computer is any different, except that it is. You sort of hear the syllables more when you're writing it out longhand, or you certainly feel them more when you're writing longhand. But eventually I began to see that, and I think Kim was part of what helped me see that. She just said, that's just silly. Why would that really change anything? And I thought, well, you're right. It doesn't change much of anything.
That's
so
right, and I guess really it started at least if I'm correct about this, I think this is what Gary related to me, that he sent a poem into one of those online vanity press things, poetry.com.
Yeah.
In the short version, trying to get rejected, right? And so he wrote just the stupidest thing he could think of, and it was quote, it was accepted for consideration for the anthology, which he didn't pay for.
Right.
If you actually are dumb enough to go through with that.
Yeah.
So that was the origin of that, and then he just started writing more of them on the email list. Even after he realized he couldn't get rejected, right? Because it was fun.
Yeah.
And so the group of us, pardon me, were on this list, and then eventually, I think it was Drew Gardner who introduced a method in the middle of all this shapeless writing of using Google search results.
Okay.
Just going to the Google page, doing usually like a combination search for like 2 or 3 terms that you don't expect to see on the same page together.
Right.
And then just using that initial search result page as a base from which to collage excerpts, not following the links, just
the language that shows up in the Google kind of like the cached or the.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So my typical process. This is the second stage. Got a big second stage where for 10 years I basically just wrote Google collages.
Okay.
And the typical process for that was I would copy however many pages of the search result page, because you click next page, or just have 100 results show up on a page or whatever.
Yeah.
And then paste that into Word and start chiseling it down.
Okay.
And rearranging it and shuffling the contents and occasionally cheating a little by putting a connector word in or something, and or the, or maybe altering a word that was, just in a slightly different grammatical form or something.
Yeah.
but that gets back to what we were saying about, not doing print revisions, because really everything's done with the kind of like refrigerator magnets that I'm just shuffling around.
Yeah.
And and I guess printing out a page, I could look at that and think, oh well, if I brought some of this down here, see it all, but I never did that. So
No, right. No, I mean it's computer generated.
Yeah, and part of the fun of it was using the computer as a kind of canvas.
Yeah.
And that was kind of just something pleasing about pulling the components around and almost physically moving them around that digital space.